Parsha begins with Ekev Tishmu Esa Mishpatim. Whatever Ekev means, there's Dibros, but the Mishpatim, and you Ushmartim Vasisim Osam. This Tishmun Shmart Vasisam. So, firstly, the Balaturim, which I mentioned yesterday, mentions the three expressions: Tishmun, you heed them; Ashmartem, you retain them; Vasisam, you actualize them. So here he says the three expressions which are mentioned: Keneged Mishnah and Talmud. Keneged Mikra, Mishnah, Talmud. Tishmun is what we actually heard. That's the Mikra. That's the words of Hashem. Then Shmartem is Mishnah. Asisem is Talmud, which is very interesting. What is Asisem Talmud? Tishmun is the Chumash, the written law. Shmartem is the Mishnah. Asisem is Talmud. Asisem seemingly means the actualization. So seemingly, you see over here, the Gemara tells us, Godla Talmud Shatal Mevid Limase. Talmud is essential because when you study, that brings to actualization. Like we read in Pirkei Avos, there's Lumaram Nas Lasos. When you study with the intent to actually fulfill the mitzvah. So even though the studying normally would say is a prerequisite, it's not the mitzvah is the actualization, but over here, the studying of Torah is essential because it allows you to actualize the mitzvah. Therefore, it's Talmud. Asisem is Talmud. Because without studying, one doesn't actualize the mitzvah. That's its Talmud. But what is it? Mishpatim? Mishpatim are always rational laws. So I think that when we speak about different categories of obligation, we speak about Eidos is testament, Chukim are statutes, Mishpatim are rational laws, as Rashi says all over. But when we speak about only Mishpatim is alluding to that's the way we have to behave. Those are the laws. But not to identify them as rational. When we classify them within the context of Chuk Mishpatim, so Mishpatim means rational laws. When we speak Mishpatim means those are the laws. Because over here the Baal Turim says, as it says in the Pasuk, Kivi Mishpat Yamad Oretz. How do you establish society and give stability to the world? Through Mishpat. Mishpat means judgment, meaning to live within a certain protocol of life. That's Mishpat. Whether it's Chukim, whether it's Mishpat, whether it's Eid, it doesn't make a difference. So over here it's Mishpatim. That's how the Baal Turim is learning. But I was thinking, as I always learned, that if the reason why you're doing the mitzvah is because it's the word of Hashem, if you're doing it for your own interest, then we could talk about neglecting. Is it worth your while? Is it not worth your while? Then we'd speak about using your own spiritual yardstick. Ekev, but even if one observes even the mitzvahs that are neglected by others, and why is that? Because you're not looking at the mitzvah per se, you're looking at the one who commanded you. Then there's no difference. There's no such thing as more important, less important. They're all as important because it's all Hashem's dictate. Therefore, it's the same. Once it's Hashem's dictate, it doesn't make a difference. It's a rational law. It's a statute. It's all the same. It's all bishpatim. It all makes sense. It makes sense because that's what Hashem wants. If you look at yourself being a beneficiary of what it is, then you say, what's its value? You say, this makes sense. That doesn't make sense. Or that I don't understand. But if it's Ekev, it's all mishpatim. It's all for the same reason. We don't differentiate in the categories of obligation, whether it's a statute or it's a rational law for that reason. Therefore, the Torah uses the term mishpatim rather than delineating, it's explaining different classifications of mitzvah. I want to say Chaim Kanevsky this question. It says over here, Hashem will bless Shgara Lefecha B'Asher Tzonecha. It's supposed to do Gimel. Means the offspring of your what? Of your cattle and Asher Samecha. And the offspring of your sheep. Rashi says, what shkar lefecha? V'lodi bekorcha. The calves of your cattle. And why does Torah use the term shkara lefecha? Shan the kevim shageris meho. Because the female casts it from its womb. Shigar means like casting out, just cast out. We find that before Hashem destroyed, or after he destroyed the world with the Mabul, Hashem says, I make a covenant with existence that I will not destroy the world again. Why won't I destroy the world again? Ki leitza levodam ram min urov. The inclination of man is evil, min urov. What does it mean, min urov? From the moment the child is emptied from the womb of his mother, the child already has an inclination to evil. So because the child is inclined to evil from the very beginning, therefore, I will not destroy the world if the human being fails. Over there, the Torah uses the term ninar. Mishin ninar me'imo. The word ninar means when he's emptied. When the child is emptied from its mother's womb, the inclination comes upon it. By the animal, it says when it's cast from the mother's womb. So I asked him, why there does it say emptied? And by the animal, it says when it's cast from the womb. That's the question I asked Reb Chaim Kanevsky. Yochanan says in Sanhedrin on that interpretation is Rabbi Yochanan's interpretation of the Pasuk, that the inclination does not come upon the child until the child is born. In utero, Hashem does not allow the evil inclination to have any influence on that child in formation as it's developing. It's only when it's fully developed and it's ready for real time, when the child becomes a human being, which at the time of birth, that's when the evil inclination comes upon the child. Meaning the child is fully developed at every level, physically and spiritually, meaning in terms of potential when it comes out of its mother's womb. As it says, in utero, the Malach teaches the child the Torah's entirety. All the Torah that the child is meant to learn as a human being till he passes away, all that Torah is communicated to that child before he's born. This is your potential of Torah. In terms of the development of that child, physically speaking, the potential to develop into an adolescent, an adult, and ultimately into old age, that already is part of the development of that child. Until that, both levels of development are in place, the evil inclination has no relevance to that child. Only once everything's in place, ready to go, and you're out of the gate, now the evil inclination is permitted to come upon that child. That's how the Maral explains the Gemara in Rabbi Yochanan. Misheninar me'imo. The evil inclination only comes upon the child once it's born. Once the child is born. So a child, when it's born, you have something in a vessel. Misheninar, you're just emptying. You're emptying something. The child is there. Now you're just emptying the child from the mother's womb. An animal in utero, out of the womb. It's the same animal, it's just more developed, less developed, but it's the same animal. The potential has no relevance in terms of this innate, what it is initially, in terms of what it will be in the future. It's like they say, what's the difference between an animal that's 1 year old, 2 years? Just 2 years, the difference is 1 year. In the actual animal itself, there's no difference. In terms, if it's physical, it's more greater mass, less mass. A human being, before it's born, its whole life is there. Now we're ready for real time in terms of addressing all the issues of what the value of that human being is. That's misheninar. You're emptying something. It's in a vessel. Now you're emptying out of that vessel. That's the mother's womb after it's fully developed. An animal just casting it out. That's all that is, which indicates less value in terms of what's coming out of the womb. It's developed now to be cast out. Therefore, it uses the term shkar alufecho. Shanekev mishageres. The mother casts it out. It does have with your connotation. It's known that, animals, after they give birth, They don't have much to do with their offspring. There's no relationship between the mother and the calf and the child. It's cast out, that's it. Remember, we spoke in the name of Reb Chaim Volozhin, when you say Baruch and you say Baruch to Hashem, what is the meaning? Baruch to Hashem, what is the meaning of that? Because if we have to give a blessing to Hashem, that means giving a blessing means you're deficient, and we're by giving you the bracha, we're bringing you to a greater level of completion, which is the equivalent of heresy. It's being heretical, because Hashem is perfect on the absolute level, right? There's no beginning, there's no end. Hashem is perfect on the absolute level. So Baruch to Hashem means you are the source of all blessing. Baruch to Hashem. Baruch tia mikol ha'amim. You are more blessed in Yud-Dalet. You are more blessed than all nations. What does that mean? You're more blessed than all nations. Either means that you're more worthy of blessing than all nations. A Baruch tia mikol ha'amim means that due to your existence, you will generate greater levels of blessing. As Hashem is the source of blessing, we are the source of blessing in terms of bringing about blessing. We are the cause why Hashem brings blessing to the world. That's Baruch tia mikol ha'amim. Chazal tell us that there was a divide between Yaakov and Esav. Yaakov was given the world to come. It says there was agitation. There was a battle within the womb of Rivka. What were they fighting over? The world to come in this world. Ultimately, there was peace made between them. Yaakov is Olam Haba, is the world to come, is the spiritual realm. Esav is the physical realm. Now, what's the difference? So I mentioned Chazal, the Midrash, when Yaakov sent the gift to Esav, and he sees this tremendous wealth, that this is just part of Yaakov's wealth. So Esav says to Yaakov, I thought we have an agreement. This world is my domain, and the world comes your domain. How do you have all this wealth? So Yaakov explains to him, when we made up the divide, the world to come and this world, your dominance in this world is this world for this world. It's not a means to an end. But of course, since I'm a human being, and a human being has needs, and you have to facilitate whatever the objective is, and it's facilitated through the physical. So I'm given the physical, not for the physical. The material is given to me to facilitate the spiritual. That's what Yaakov said to Esav. And that's what he said. Esav said, Yeshli Rov. I have so much. What did Yaakov say? Yeshli Kol. I have it all. Meaning Hashem gives me as much as I need to facilitate my spirituality. I don't need more than that. I have it all. I'm never lacking. Why aren't I lacking in the material? Because whatever material Hashem gives me, it's for what? For that particular objective, to address my spiritual potential. Therefore, it's always Yeshli Kol. Esav says Yeshli Rov. I have so much, but I'm not there yet. Because if the physical world is yours, you can't take it all in. Chazal tell us, when a person passes from this world, even 50% of his desires, his aspirations haven't been fulfilled. Because you can't, it's not possible. But in terms of the spiritual, Yeshli Kol, whatever Hashem gives me, I don't need more than that. Because all that I'm given is necessary to facilitate my spiritual. So Baruch tia mikol ha'amim. In terms of ourselves, the Jewish people, we are the blessing among all nations. Why does Hashem give the world what it does, the material? Because we are the source of all blessing. We are the purpose of all blessing. Chazal tell us that the only reason why there's illness in the world is because of the Jewish people. Because really, the non-Jews should not ever get sick. Because if this world was given to them, the material world, everything should be on a perfect level. There should be no deficiencies and no suffering. So why the nation's world experience illness and disease as we do? Because if only the Jews would be subject to illness and disease, you know what they would say? The Jewish people are accursed people. They're cursed because only they have they're diseased and they're sick people. It would be a chil Hashem. So as a result of that, that's the reason why all mankind is subject to illness and disease, because otherwise it would be a chil Hashem if only the Jews be subject to it. So Baruch Tiyeh Mikol Ha'amim. We're the basis. We are the basis. We generate all bracha. Whatever bracha comes to the world, it's only because of the Klal Yisrael. And they, as a result of that, lo yeh b'cha okav ha'kora u'be'amtecha. Therefore, there'll be nobody who'll be barren. Barren means you don't generate anything. You're stunted where you are. Therefore, lo yeh b'cha okav ha'kora u'be'amtecha. Holy, and this is what it's all about. Hashem will remove all illness from you. And all the diseases, the bad illnesses of Egypt, which you know firsthand because you witnessed it, you'll appreciate it. He will not allow that to come upon you. So here the Seforno says usually that if you're in an area where you have contagious diseases, usually if you're in that environment, you contract that disease from the people who are diseased. He says, when you were in Egypt and they had the Madvi Mitzrayim, lo yisim bach, you were not affected. You were immune from those diseases. And your enemies, they will be susceptible to that. You will not be susceptible. Even if you be exposed to it, you're not going to be susceptible to it. You will not contract those diseases. It was known, Rabbi Yisrael Salanter, the famous story, there was a cholera epidemic in Vilna, in that area, and the ruling was that all people had to eat on Yom Kippur. Because the doctor said that it was essential that people have to eat, the bodies have to be hydrated and nourished, otherwise they'll be more susceptible to the effects of the cholera epidemic. If you have observant Jews, tell them to eat. Are they going to eat on Yom Kippur? So it was known, Rabbi Yisrael Salanter went in the largest shul in Vilna, and he openly said Kiddush, and he drank the wine. He drank, and once Rabbi Yisrael Salanter openly drank on Yom Kippur, all people broke their fasts. People did not fast. Rabbi Yisrael Salanter wasn't concerned for himself. He understood that he was at a level that he would be immune. He did it only for the public, for the tzibur, because the tzibur themselves would not eat, and it was essential. They should eat, therefore he drank. So his drinking was pikuach nefesh, not for himself. You violate the Shabbos if someone else's life is in danger. That's why he drank the wine. So if we be at that special level, the world has all these contractable diseases. Lo yisim bach, will be immune to them. We're not going to be affected by it. Only your enemies will be susceptible and contract those diseases, not us. We will not. It was a known fact, the Chofetz Chaim, when he speaks about going for Tashlich on Rosh Hashanah, he says that people should not go to Tashlich where the body of water is within the city itself. They should go outside the city. Why? Because in the Middle Ages, when there was the Black Plague, the non-Jews were much more susceptible to the Black Plague than the Jewish people. Jews were not affected as the Goyim. So what did the priests tell their congregations? That the Jews, they go and they pray by the water and they cast a spell on the water. And that's why when we drink the water, they poison our water sources. That's when we're dying, and they're not dying as we die. And it created many pogroms because of this. Therefore, he says, when you go to Tashlich, go out of the city. That the Goyim don't see you saying Tashlich. But in the city, they're going to say you're casting a spell on the water. The Gemara tells us in Psachim that if you have a hole in the wall and you keep chametz there, it keeps chametz there, and you have a non-Jewish neighbor who shares that there's a common wall between both residences, you should not search out that hole. That hole in the wall for chametz. Why? Because the non-Jewish neighbor is saying the Jew is doing sorcery and casting some kind of spell on his neighbor. So it's pikuach nefesh. Therefore, we have no obligation to search out that hole in the wall for chametz, because if the guy will see you searching out, he'll say it's kishuv. He's doing sorcery. That's the first thing that comes. These rituals the Jews do. It's also, they mumble and and they murmur. It's all kinds of whatever it is. It's expressions of sorcery. So here, they're dying, we're not dying. But the real reason was, this could be part of the reason was, because the level of hygiene among Jews and Goyim, it was like worlds apart. In the Middle Ages, Goyim barely bathed maybe twice a year. How often did they wash their hands? A Jew, always before he eats, he always washes his hands. He does his bodily functions, he washes his hands. So whatever the level of hygiene was, comparatively speaking, there's no comparison between the Jew and a Goy. A Jew his level of hygiene was a different level of hygiene. Changed his clothing for Shabbos. You have to wear clean clothing. You're not permitted to daven if your clothing are soiled or dirty. The Goyim, it was when we say there was the dark ages, they were in the dark. They lived like semi-barbarians, these people, in those years. As a result of that, that's the reason why they were more susceptible to disease and whatever illnesses which they had, which we did not have. But they attributed it that we cast some kind of spell on their water, therefore they died, and we were not susceptible to the Black Plague. Chaltas kol ha'amim. What is ochalta? Literally means eating. You will eat the nations. It's a pretty earthy term. You're going to eat them. You're going to devour them. Ochaltas kol ha'amim. Asher Hashem elkecha nosei loch, which Hashem is giving to you. Now, if you remember the Meraglim, when they came back, 10 of the Meraglim, the spy said, it's Eretz Ochel Yishrael. It's a land which devours its and its inhabitants. What term did they use? Eretz Ocheles Yishrael. It's a land which devours its inhabitants. What did Yeshua Kolev say? Ki lachmeinuhu. It's like our bread. Right? The Meraglim says the land will devour us. The word achila. Eretz Ocheles Yishrael. But what did Hashem say? Achaltas kol ha'amim. The land will not devour you, but you will devour them. Yeshua Kolev says, Ki lachmeinuhu. Just as when one eats bread, one devours the bread without any difficulty, identically, when we go into the Canaan, we'll destroy the enemy. As one eats bread, that's how easy it will be. When you eat, there's no difficulty. That's the way we'll destroy the enemy when we go in. So I'm saying that term, achalta. Achalt means you will devour. Asher elkecha nosei loch. Now, if you remember the Orach Chaim HaKadosh in Parshas Shlach, Shlach l'cha anoshim, to where? To the land that I've given to you, lavosecho, that I've given to your forefathers. So the Orach Chaim HaKadosh explains over there, if the Meraglim and the people would have heard and understood the words which Hashem had said, there wouldn't have been a story of Meraglim. What did they come back? They said, it's a land of giants. It's true, it's Eretz Zavas Cholot Vosh, but unless you're a giant, you can't survive it. How can we take these giants out of the land? So if they would have listened to the words of Hashem, it's the land which I am giving it to you. So he explains it to Orach Chaim HaKadosh. A person wants to deliver real estate, an apartment building, and the tenants. So the person who's going to receive that gift says, what am I going to do with the tenants? You can't evict them. So the benefactor says to the one who's going to receive the piece of property, says, I'm the landlord, I'm the benefactor. I'm giving to you. It's going to be tenant free. I will clear the land. When you receive it, there will be no tenants. Hashem says, I am delivering the land. You're concerned, how do I remove the giants? You're not supposed to remove the giants. If I'm giving it, that's my responsibility. Therefore, you don't have to contend with whatever is there. I will clear the field. You will consume the nations, Hashem Elokecha no sein loch, which Hashem is giving to you. Hashem is giving you those nations. It's not up to you to deal with it. Rashi said earlier in last week's parsha, if not for the Chet HaMeraglim, we wouldn't have even had to go to battle. As we walked into the land, they would have just dropped. But because we failed to do the Meraglim, therefore we have to enter in some level of conventional warfare. Otherwise, it wouldn't have been necessary. But it's Hashem God is giving you those nations. Lo sochos ein chaleim. You should have no mercy on them. Now, it's interesting. It should say lo sochos aleim. What's lo sochos ein chaleim? Your eye should not have mercy upon him. Why are we speaking about the eye? Lo savar Elohim ki mo k'shuloch. And don't worship their gods, because it's a pitfall for you. What is it? Lo sochos ein chaleim. You should not veer after your hearts. What's acharei nechem? All physical desires is included with the surah acharei nechem. Levavchem is minus. Your heart is what? That's heresy. Einechem is what? Is znus, or material desire. Because the heart always requests and desires more and more of the physical, of the material. And the eye is always looking for that. Lo sochos einechem aleim. We're told to annihilate human beings. When you see the human being naturally, especially us, more than anything, are compassionate. Right? Hashem is telling us to do something which is contrary to our whole being. How do we do it? Hashem says, don't allow your eye to distract you from what you're supposed to do. That's losochas ein chaleim. Because the eye is connected to the heart, and the Jewish heart is what? Is compassionate and only wants to do good for a fellow human being, Jew and non-Jew alike. Therefore, those sochas ein chaleim. Don't allow your eye to distract you. That's what uses the term eye. Ernie, what are you saying? I see you shaking your head a little bit.
No, I'm just thinking about today, in today's world, how we have no.
How did he kill Zimri? He took a spear and he pierced them through their general area, both Zimri and Cosby. And he lifted them up and he took them out and displayed them. And then he slammed them to the ground when they actually died. Do you know the level of viciousness? The level, what you have to do to be able to do that? It would have such negative consequences or ramifications on the whole person. If you could do something so lack of feeling to be able to kill another person in such a manner, you become a different human being afterwards. Your sensitivity for other human beings, you've destroyed all your level of compassion or anybody else. You become somebody, you become a monster if you behave this way. You know what Hashem says? Nosati loch brisi shalom. He had needed a special covenant of shalom to counter the effect of what he had done, because the ramifications of that action will change you to be a different human being. But it was the ultimate Kiddush Hashem what he did. As a result of that, shalom. Therefore, Hashem had to give him a bris of shalom that he should not be affected by that action that he had done. So the Jew himself that is Rachmanim Gomli Chasodim, how do we go and destroy people, men, women, and children? The mitzvah is to annihilate all 7 nations of Canaan. Lo sochas ein aleim. Don't allow your eye to have any mercy upon them. Because the eye, if you let your eye take over, you're not going to be able to do it. Alan, what do you say?
100%. Yeah.
Yeah.
Right, that highlights, the mistake, that, Shaul did when he didn't kill Agag.
Yeah, but that's something else. Yeah. It's a separate discussion.
Rabbi,
Yes.
why is it v'achalta in past tense? Why isn't v'te'achel? Everything else seems to be in future or present. This is in past tense.
Again, Ernie, you went to day school in Detroit. Academy, what was it called? I don't know what it was called.
Yeshiva Bes Yehuda.
Basically, you went to Yeshiva, elementary school, Beit Yehuda?
And no, I went to Akiva.
That's what I said, Akiva.
Yeah.
Okay. There's a vav in grammar, it's called vava mahapeches. It converts it from past to future. If it would say achalta is past, ve'ochalta means and you will. It's called vava mahapeches. Converts it to the future. That's v'ochalta.
Very good. This is never
The consequence of killing and the Jew being so compassionate, we have difficulty doing certain things. Hashem says, despite that, don't allow your eye to distract you. If not for the Chet HaMeraglim, what would have been? We wouldn't have had to kill them. Just going into the land, they would have they would have died. The moment we stepped on the land, all these nations would have actually perished. We wouldn't have to be involved in the process of killing them. But why did we have to be involved conventionally? Was the Chet HaMeraglim. Now, what was the Chet HaMeraglim? They said, Eretz Ochel Shivshvei. It's a land, we can't stand up to these people. They will devour us. What does Yeshua say? No, we will devour them. But we're involved in the process of devouring. That was the question. Do you eat like bread, which has no negative ramification on the person? So if we wouldn't have failed it with Chet HaMeraglim, it's like eating bread. It has no negative consequence. But because they failed, and they said, Eretz Ochel Yisrael, that means we have to be involved in the process. Once you're involved in the process, it's not so simple. Now Hashem has said, Lo sochas eincha aleim. Don't allow your eye to be distracted, because your eye will cause you to be more compassionate. You'll have difficulty. This is as a result of the consequence of the Chet HaMeraglim. Let's see the halacha.